All right, welcome back. Today we're going behind the scenes of a construction project. But, we're not just looking at the blueprints and the heavy machinery. We're going to dive deep into the hidden world of its financial pulse and its physical health. This really complex dance of invoices, unexpected risks, and of course, liability.
So let's just kick things off with a little riddle. What does a super detailed spreadsheet have in common with a full-body biohazard suit? I know, it sounds kind of weird, right? But the answer is actually pretty simple. They are both absolutely essential tools for managing critical project risk. Just stick with me, and I promise it'll all make sense.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the project's paper trail. Then we'll break down what an invoice really is and see how the money flows. And then we're going to hit a major curveball, uncovering some pretty nasty materials. We'll look at how that crisis gets managed and, finally, how it all ties back together in the final bill.
Okay, let's get into it with the project's paper trail. Because you have to understand, every single construction project is living two lives at the exact same time, one on paper and one out there in the dirt and steel of the real world. Think of it like this. A project basically has two different health reports. You've got the invoices, which tell you all about its financial health. Is the cash flow strong? Are we staying on budget? And then you have the site safety reports, which tell you about its physical health. Are we building this thing safely? Are we doing it right? If either one of these is in bad shape, the entire project is in serious trouble.
So let's zoom in on that financial health report. Section 2, the anatomy of an invoice. This is really the blueprint for how everyone gets paid.
Now, the key thing to get here is that a construction invoice isn't just some casual request for money. No way. It's a formal, legally binding document. It's the official record of performance and liability. It's the proof that says, hey, we did the work we promised, and here's exactly what it cost.
And for that invoice to actually hold up, it needs all these essential pieces. The unique number, who's involved, the dates, and of course, a super detailed breakdown of the work and the costs. Every single one of these is crucial. Without them, the invoice is just a piece of paper, and it's totally wide open for disputes.
See, an invoice on its own is really just a claim. To turn that claim into cold, hard cash without a bunch of arguments and delays, it needs backup. It needs proof. And that's why an invoice almost never ever travels alone.
And here's what that proof looks like. You've got timesheets for labor, receipts for all the materials, photos to show the progress, and then you have things like lien waivers. And that's a really important legal doc where the contractor says, once you pay me this, I promise not to put a legal claim or a lien on your property. It's all about building a totally ironclad case for payment.
Okay, so we know what's in an invoice. But how does the money actually move? Well, that brings us to Section 3, getting paid in milestones. This is all about the rhythm of the project.
You see, big projects aren't paid in one giant lump sum at the end. I mean, that would be a total cash flow nightmare. Instead, they use something called progress billing. As the contractor hits key milestones, they bill for that chunk of completed work. The client then checks it all out, makes sure it matches the plan, approves it, and then makes the payment. Well, most of the payment anyway.
And that little bit they hold back, that's called retention. You can think of it as the client's insurance policy. They hold back a small percentage, usually around 5 to 10% of every single payment. That money only gets released when the entire project is finished and they're happy with it. It's a really powerful way to make sure the contractor sees the job all the way through to the end.
So far, our project's been going pretty smoothly. The paper trail is clean, the payments are flowing, but let's be real, construction is never that simple. It's time to throw a wrench in the works. Section 4, uncovering hidden dangers.
So imagine this. The excavation crew's digging away, and they find something in the soil that really shouldn't be there. It could be asbestos from some old building, maybe heavy metals left over from an old factory, or even PCBs. All of a sudden, the project's physical health is in serious jeopardy.
And this is where the stakes get incredibly high. Because if a contractor messes up how they handle this discovery, they can be held legally and financially responsible for making the problem even worse, for spreading that contamination around. This isn't just about a delay anymore. This is a potential project killer.
So how do you deal with a potential project killer? Well, it turns out you do it the same way you handle payments, with a very clear, very documented process. Welcome to Section 5. Handling hazardous materials.
The response has to be methodical. It starts with a Phase 1 assessment. This is basically detective work. You're reviewing old records, looking at the site, trying to identify potential risks. If that search raises any red flags, you move to Phase 2.
And that's the forensic work, literally taking physical samples of the soil and materials to confirm exactly what you're dealing with. And once that contaminant is confirmed, the golden rule kicks in. You absolutely cannot mix the bad stuff with the good stuff. Contaminated waste has to be carefully separated from any clean, recyclable material. Just one mistake here could contaminate a whole truckload of soil, and that multiplies your disposal costs and your liability like you wouldn't believe.
Okay, deep breath. Now it's time to bring our two big storylines, the perfect paper trail and the hazardous waste crisis, and see how they come together. Section 6, the final bill and liability.
All of that expensive, complicated, but totally necessary cleanup work doesn't just happen for free, right? It all has to find its way into the project's financial story. This usually happens through something called change orders, which are just formal updates to the contract for this unexpected work, and it all ends up on the final invoice.
And that brings us right back to where we started. That question about the spreadsheet and the biohazard suit, what do they have in common? They're both tools for risk mitigation. Meticulous invoicing protects you from financial risk, from disputes, from cash flow problems. And proper contamination management protects you from legal liability, environmental damage, and health hazards. They are two sides of the exact same crucial coin.
Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. After the project is done, the site is clean, and that final invoice has been paid, who truly owns the long-term risk? The paper trail gives you a record, for sure, but the story of what lies beneath the ground, that can continue for decades. It's just a powerful reminder of how deeply connected a project's paper trail is to its physical footprint on the world. Thanks for joining me.